In this video today, I'm going to speak about writing an abstract. So an abstract is a very brief summary of what you've written. And examples of this could be lab reports, review papers, and ultimately a dissertation, which you'll write throughout your sports science degree. Okay, so the word count is around about 150, 200, 250 words. And this depends on the lecturer, it depends on the word count which they set. So it can vary. And what I'm going to do is give an example of one of my papers. So this is a paper in mental fatigue in football. This is part of my PhD. And this is an abstract I had to write for one of my papers. So firstly, before I go into the details of that, I'm going to give you a breakdown of the 4 areas that you should be hitting in an abstract. First of all, you need your background. So I'll explain what it is in a second. You've got your background, you've got your methodology, and then as I come down here, you can see a results section. And then you're going to finish off with a brief conclusion. Again, like I say, it can be slightly more than mine. Mine's 200. Some abstracts can be 250, 300 words even in some circumstances. But I'll go back to the start. So your background is essentially, you need to set the scene. So you need to speak about the research area, give an idea of maybe what's been done in the past. So this is what I've done here. So bearing in mind, mine's about mental fatigue. So I've got a very short sentence here saying what's happened in the past in mental fatigue research. I'm setting my stall out early, explaining the context. You'll see in an abstract, there are no references. You don't need to put references in an abstract. So I've got my first sentence there, which sets the stall. And then the end of the abstract section where it's the background, that should speak about, well, what's the gap in the literature? What's essentially the reason why you've come to your study? So as you can see here, highlighted what I've done. I'll speak about a couple of limitations in the research. So that sets up my methodology section. So I come to the methodology, and you want to keep this nice and simple. Remember, it's only 200, 250 words. It has to be very, very concise. You don't need to put all the details in. The main bit you'll always have at the start of an abstract is your population. So how many people were involved? How old were they? Mine's a survey, but if yours is more of a physical study, for example, a bike test, a treadmill test in a laboratory, what was the height? What was the weight? What was the fitness level of the people in question? Were they highly trained? Were they untrained? Moderately trained? These sorts of things come up. And then what did you actually do? So for me, as a survey, as I've said already, so I've said it's a survey with questions comprising of 5 different themes. And these are the sort of questions which I put into the survey. So again, it's all about the context. It's all about what you've done. So again, if it's in a laboratory, you've been on a bike. So how many people were doing this test? What was the test? How did you conduct that test? That's essentially what you're talking about here. You may put an extra line at the end talking about the statistical tests that you used. That could also go in there as well. All right, so I'm going to move on to the results now. With your results, you just want to keep it to the main results. You might have 15, 20 talking points from your paper. You might have so much data, but in your abstract, you're just catching the reader's attention. So what's the most important, interesting findings you found in your paper? So you don't need to worry about the details of mine, but I essentially listed the 3 or 4 for me that were quite interesting. What you want to do is include some figures. So percentages, you've got some units here for my survey, you've got some numbers there. Long story short, you want some numbers in brackets and even some statistical elements as well. So if you have p-values, for example, you want to put those into brackets where it fits, basically. So that's your results. And then you're going to finish off with a conclusion. Now, mine's quite short. You can see here, mine is very brief. If you look at other abstracts, they can be a little bit longer, but your conclusion is your conclusion. You're just essentially saying, what has your paper found? What's new in your paper? What's new in your dissertation? And that's essentially an abstract. Very, very brief. Like I said, 200 words. That's how an abstract looks. If you want to speak a bit more about an abstract and get some more context for a different type of study that you're doing, let me know, Sports Science Hacks on Instagram, and we can go from there. Okay, thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you again soon.